lateral monster walk. So I have a shorter style TheraBand or resistance band here. And in the intro video, you saw that depicted where the band was around the front half of my foot. And why that's important is that's going to be the hardest position because the band is essentially pulling my toes in, which is going to create internal rotation in my hip. And I'm trying to fight that with my external rotators. And those muscles are on the lateral side of my hip, which is the whole purpose of the movement, is to kind of strengthen and give you a sensation to be able to feel the lateral structures in your hip throughout the movement. So a really common fault that we see is that when people get set up, they'll get their feet too close together and they do this lean step, put all their weight down, and they'll let their leg just slap back in. You're trying to keep your feet about hip width apart the entire time. Your knees are going to be slightly bent, and then you're literally picking your foot up and putting it down without doing like a teeter-totter step, okay? So I try to pretend that I have a wall to the right of my shoulder, the wall to the left of my shoulder that's kind of moving with me in whatever direction I'm going, so that way I don't lean into the wall. I'm trying to stay my shoulders parallel to the floor as I move across. Now the other piece, if I turn sideways here, is individuals who are weak in their lateral hip. We often see them try to come a lot into kind of like they'll lose the tension in their lumbar spine. So they'll arch their back, which if we're in this position creates relative hip flexion. So if I arch my low back, my bony part at the front of my hip gets closer to my thigh, that's hip flexion. And then they'll really feel it in the front of their hips when they're doing this because their hip flexors are taking over. So I like the cue of tuck your hips under you by just thinking about squeezing your butt when you're at the top. Then fill your belly full of air while keeping the tension in your butt. And then I'm holding that tension and I'm just gonna bend my knee. So if my shirt was really tight, you'd see that I'm in a straight line and there's really no arch in my low back. Now there's an arch, the arch is gone. I can feel the tension in my glutes, and now I'm gonna do that lateral walk. If that is way too challenging, meaning you start going into all those compensation patterns that we just talked through, then you're gonna move the band up to your ankles. If that's too challenging, you come up to mid-shin, and then if that's too challenging, you come up to your knees. So the most challenging position is all the way out of the toes. The least challenging position is around the knees. And then pay attention to the resistance progressions with whatever band you're using because each company is a little bit different. This here is a Perform Better band where yellow is the lightest. So again, make sure that you're choosing your band with the correct resistance to kind of match your sets and reps to prevent any sort of compensation from occurring.